This Friday is the 199th anniversary of Karl Marx's birth, and it's been 150 years since he published his first volume of Das Kapital. Are his theories still relevant to guide the development of China in the years ahead? And in our continuing series, The Belt and Road's Heartbeats, I'll be talking with an entrepreneur who is the only Swiss person running a retail wine chain in China. She tells us how traders like her can benefit from the initiative. Welcome to The Point. I'm Li Xin. Friday is the 199th anniversary of Karl Marx's birth, and 2017 also marks the 150th anniversary of the publication of the first volume of his great work, Das Kapital, the most extensive statement of his ideas published in his lifetime. Decades ago, Marxism provided guidance for China to go from its foundation through to the reform and opening up. Will Marx's theories need to draw new ideas or theoretical frameworks to guide the development of China in the years ahead? And as we see a trend of digital media giants dominating the market these days, how will cultural diversity be affected? Earlier, I spoke with Professor Graham Murdoch from the Department of Social Sciences at Loughborough University in the UK to discuss these issues. What do you think of the relevance of Karl Marx's work in today's world?
Well, I think he's become more relevant in recent years. The big event in the West was the 2008 financial crisis. And that really broke the idea that the economy was working. It clearly was not working. And Marx, of course, throughout his life, he emphasized that capitalism was not a smooth system. It would be subject to periodic crises. And so when the 2008 financial crisis happened, people said, oh, Marx was right. Things are not going to work. And I think that's reinvigorated people's interest in him. Before, particularly with the fall of the Soviet Union, people said, oh, well, you know, he's gone, he's finished, it's all finished now. But now he's a very contemporary figure. The other thing that's happened, of course, is that since that crisis, you've seen a huge increase in levels of inequality. You see that across the Western world. The difference between the rich and the poor is getting bigger and bigger every day. So in a way, we've gone backwards to a situation Marx would know very well from the 19th century. So the landscape of capitalism now, although you have high-speed train and computer, the social landscape is very, very similar to the one he described.
That's really incredible. I mean, to think about that although we have developed so much ahead, what he was describing is still relevant, but was what he proposed can still answer the questions for today? Can his theory still provide answers for the question, the problem you just mentioned?
My own view is that his theories are a necessary starting point, but he died in 1883, so he couldn't answer all of the questions that we have.
What is the starting point, for instance?
Well, the starting point is that we still, in the West, we still live in a capitalist society. And I think his analysis of capitalism is still the most solid and the most convincing. So as long as we have a capitalist society, I think we need to start with his fundamental perceptions, which were firstly that it's a society of exploitation, that the rich will try to take everything they can and run away, and that it's a society that will always have crises and will manufacture inequalities. All of those characteristics are now very, very familiar to us in the current situation across Europe. It's a fundamental crisis of the whole system. So he's a man who understood crisis.
Let's talk about the situation in China. Is Marxism still the relevant theoretical framework to guide China's development in the future, or do you think new ideas need to be drawn in to reinforce that?
You certainly need some new ideas, but I think he still is relevant, because when you had a revolution, you didn't have a capitalist society. I mean, the revolution entered a society that was much less developed. Now you are creating your own form of capitalism, you know? Capitalism with Chinese characteristics.
Instead of socialism with...
well, I mean, it also has socialism with Chinese characteristics, but I think you've moved now much more towards a capitalist system with markets and profit generation and so on. And as soon as you do that, then I think Marx becomes more relevant, because that's the society analyst. He was never an analyst of communism. You know, the Communist Manifesto was not a manifesto for a communist party. There was no communist party until after Marx died. It's a manifesto for a vision of a society that would have solidarity, would have common ownership of property, and where people would not exploit each other. That was what he wanted, that's what he dreamed of, but he never lived to see that. But what he did was to produce a very fundamental analysis of the society he saw all around him. So as long as you have any elements of capitalism in a society, Marx is absolutely relevant.
What do you think of the call nowadays, or the kind of urgent need expressed by the Chinese leadership to revisit Marxism?
In principle, of course, that's a good thing. So studying him carefully is a very important thing. But I think that you need to remember two things. Firstly, he never finished his work. The first volume of Kapital is the only substantial book he ever published in his life. The other two volumes of Kapital were compiled after he died from notes. And he had a plan for many more volumes. Originally, when he approached his publisher, he was going to publish something like 10 more volumes on all sorts of things, international trade, the role of the state, and so on. He never published any of them. And so we still have to fill in the gaps. And that's why the notebook, you know, all through his life he wrote notebooks. And many fundamental insights, but there may be 2 or 3 pages, and then he passes on to something else. So we have a lot of work to do to complete his work.
Let's talk about the kind of implication of his theory in the present day world and maybe in the world in the future. Right now it's all characterized by the digital aspect of things, right? And we are seeing a huge increase of corporate giants in the digital media. For instance, in the United States, we have Google, we have Amazon, we have Facebook, Twitter, and in China we also have very similar phenomena, for instance, Baidu and Tencent. What do you think is the impact of digital media on cultural diversity, and whether Marxism can provide some guidance in that respect?
The digital media are even more concentrated than the old media. I mean, 6 companies dominate Western media, film, TV, newspapers, and so on. And those are very familiar. Disney, News Corp, Viacom, and so on. When the internet came, remember, it was supposed to be an open system. And everybody believed, or most people believed, that it would break the power of these big corporations. You have these big corporations at the top, and they're sending material down to audiences. Everybody believed the internet would be a flat system. Everybody would be able to participate. What came as a huge surprise to most people was that very soon power over the popular internet became so concentrated. So you now have virtual monopolies in the West over key areas of people's popular use. And they have incredible control over what you can see on the screen. You take Apple, for example. Apple will not allow anything onto an Apple machine that they have not approved. This is a new kind of censorship. This is a new kind of control. It's what I describe for my students. It's the censorship of money. And it's very, very powerful. So we now have a digital media system that is more and more concentrated than we've ever had before.
What is the benefit of that, and what is the challenges of that?
Well, the benefit is convenience. I mean, everybody says, oh, I can get everything on my phone. No, you can't get everything. The damage,
only the things that are allowed to come to you.
Yes, it's a form of censorship. So the damage is what you never see. So take Facebook, for example, in Britain. Facebook now plays a major role in feeding news items onto people's Facebook pages. Yeah? From young people, it's the dominant source of their news. They're not watching programs like this. They're not reading the newspapers. They look on Facebook. What does Facebook put on there? It only puts the things that are relevant to that person as judged by their previous postings. So you only get to read things you already agree with. And this is a disaster because you never see other points of view. So you just get confirmed in your own views. That's an incredible closure of the mind, but also of debate.
Yeah, well, while he was compiling the Kapital, Marx was talking about the role of machines in the accumulation process. What do you think of the role of machine is in this internet age in connection to what you just said?
We're moving into a whole new era which you can only just glimpse, which is built around particularly robots and artificial intelligence. We're moving into what's called the Internet of Things. So that people think of the internet, you and I send each other things. The Internet of Things is where you have intelligent devices, your refrigerator, everything in your house has a computer capacity, and they communicate with each other, but also with the internet without your knowledge.
Yes.
But they're sending all kinds of information about you, what you like to eat, what you've got in your fridge, and so on. So we've already moved into a situation where the machines are talking more than the people. And you have no control over that. Then when we come to robots, there's an estimation in the United States that in the next 15 years, robots will take 47% of all the current jobs that people do. Now, we have an enormous crisis. What are we going to do if that happens?
Yeah.
How will people live?
And people are talking about the Internet of Everything, which is even a step even further. But drawing from your research background, do you think Marxism or Marx would have come up with some kind of starting point for an answer to this?
Well, Marx, in one of his notebooks, Marx has an interesting discussion of this, but it dramatizes the problem. He says, this could be wonderful because it would free people from doing very boring tasks and everybody could live a much fuller life if we were prepared to pay them not to work. But he also says, well, under current conditions, information and knowledge is owned by corporations. So it depends who gets the benefits of this intellectual knowledge that is inside the machine. Who will own the machine is really the big
Basically,
big question.
not the people whose jobs have been replaced by the robots, but the corporations.
And that's a big problem.
Yes, that we are seeing, and people are trying to shift blames for that by finding all kinds of excuses. But that gets to a different topic. Let's talk a little bit about your research area, because you are known in the West or in China as a leader of the revitalization and development of critical political economy of media and communication. But there are many scholars who tend to isolate cultural studies with a political economy. Why do you want to bring the two together?
Well, because that's the way the media are structured. The media are two things at the same time. They're clearly an enormous industrial system. Enormous numbers of people are working in them. They make a lot of money. They're capitalist corporations like other corporations. But they have this one distinction, which is what they make is not something that you can buy
or touch.
It's our cultural world. They make the stories, they make the news, they make the symbolic world, the images that we all use to try to understand ourselves and to understand the world. So for me, the really important question is, I'm very much in favor of having a cultural system which is diverse and dynamic. So you ask yourself, what kind of economic organization of the media will help us to achieve that? Is it a good thing that only 6 companies control so much? The answer for me is no, it isn't, because that gives too much power to a very small number of people to decide what stories you will hear. what information you will receive. So for me, the two things cannot be separated. You have to think of the media as simultaneously both an economic system and a cultural system.
But from the trends you're seeing, from the statistics you're seeing, are we heading even further in that direction? You just more concentration of information and power in smaller corporations?
Yes, we are, and that's the paradox of the internet, because the internet could be a system of participation, it could be a system for allowing more people to participate, but it's being closed. It's being closed down by these corporations, and for most people they're very happy just to have all of that on their phone. That's all they want.
Yes,
and,
unfortunately.
You know, so they are not demanding to be, you know, participating, except to send selfie or something. So we have a major problem. I think we have a culture that is closing in on itself, much more than before, actually.
And we in the media definitely have the primary responsibility to think what to do and how to do it differently.
Well, you also have the responsibility to offer something that people cannot just get from the big companies, something different.
And here is my point. Last year in China, a rap song called Marx was born in the 1990s went viral on social media. It reflected the reawakened interest by the younger generation in the man and his work. As China deepens its reform and opening up, the search for freedom, equality and justice is now even more relevant than ever before. Meanwhile, in the West, Marx gained new respectability following the 2008 financial crisis. The questions he was asking 150 years ago about inequality appear equally relevant. To search for the answers, surely it is high time for us all to revisit his life and works without prejudging him. We might all find something interesting to learn. Claudia, thank you very much for accepting our interview. First of all, tell us your story with China. When did you come to China? What did you want to do? Have you achieved that?
I arrived in China in 2008 and was great enthusiastic to learn more about the Chinese market. I only had 2 suitcases full of wine samples with me, and I traveled all around the country to figure out if there is a potential for selling wine in China. And of course there was, and I then started to first set up a B2B company. And we were growing very, very fast until November 2010, where our warehouse burned down. And this was a good thing at the end, because during this time we reconsidered our business model and we started a very successful wine retail chain for millenniums. Now we are growing very fast all over China. So this country is really exciting because it's very dynamic, and especially the young generation is highly interested to know more about the wine world, especially because it's very complex and many countries are connected with it.
Yeah. Where is the connection between wine business, between China and Switzerland, and the Belt and Road Initiative in your eyes?
So we import wines from all over the world, and of course the Belt and One Road is very attractive for us traders, because it will give us much more faster ways to import the wines into China. I strongly believe that this is a very exciting and in long term very positive project, and it can bring the world closer together. It's also that the cultural exchange through this initiative, it's going to be more intense.
What do you really need, and do you think the Belt and Road Initiative might give you that opportunity, or has already given you that opportunity?
We definitely need a faster supply chain, and I guess this would be a very good option. The recent or the current situation is that we are shipping the wines from all over the world to China. If we would use now Belt and Road Initiative, then the prices right now per bottle is more expensive than by ship, but I guess this will change also after a while when the volume is increasing. So I still believe it's a very attractive option. Right now for us not possible because it's too expensive.
So you are paying attention to this initiative. What do you think is this initiative, though? Because people keep asking this question. There are some roads to be built, there are trade to be talked about, there is also the cultural aspect. What is Belt and Road in your understanding?
It brings countries closer, it makes trade faster, it makes the transport of goods through those countries much more efficient. So it is a very, very positive way for traders to make faster businesses. So I think that's a very good option.
Right now, what is the biggest obstacle for you in doing business here in China, or what is the biggest challenge?
Oh, there are many challenges in China every day. So biggest challenge is the fast changing of the market, which I like very much. You have to change your strategy or rethink your strategy every 6 months because China is changing very, very fast.
Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, what kind of change do you have to deal with right now?
It's all the new social medias, which is coming up every day, new possibilities. Then it's the restructuring of the Beijing place. So we are in the retail business, so retail goes more into shopping malls rather than street stores. So this is a constant change.
What do you want to do in the future in terms of wine? You talked about catering more to the young people and using the internet more often or more wisely. Do you have a grand scale of your next dream, let's say?
Yeah, the ultimate goal of our company is to open 888 stores in China.
Why 888?
It's a lucky number. Okay. We target the young generation. We make wine drinking fun and affordable because many young people, they get confused in the complex wine world. So we simplify this, we give free tastings, we really guide them through it to enjoy a glass of wine.
What has been the reception so far? How do the young people like it?
Oh, they love it very much. We also grow with a franchise system, so our customer, the young people, opening now their own stores all over China. So it's very exciting. Young Chinese are drinking wine now almost on a daily basis already. They really enjoy the ambiente, they enjoy the lifestyle. So it's something wonderful.
What is the biggest difference between the Chinese wine clientele, let's say, and what the group of people that you know, that you are very familiar with, either in Switzerland or in Europe, and how do you want to bridge that gap?
I have grown up in a wine family. My family is in business since 1898. So in my family, we used to drink every day a glass of wine with lunch or dinner. Of course, only after I've been 18 years old. It is a common thing in Europe to drink a glass of wine with your lunch and your dinner, and we are so used to it. And it's when you want to know more about the wine world, it is very important that you drink or you taste many different kinds. So here in China, it is a new product. So many people started at the beginning to drink heavy Bordeaux wines, which no one actually likes when you start drinking wine. So they put Coca-Cola.
But because it was very famous.
It is famous, yes, exactly. So it is very important that you not start with a strong, heavy wine. If you want to start drinking wine, you might start with a Moscato, which we just drink right now, or a more fruitier, rounder wine from the New World, rather than going into the complex wines. So you have to really go step by step through it.
Yeah. Do you think the Chinese can appreciate wine, or have you seen progress since the past 9 years?
Yes, of course, very much. So people enjoy now drinking wine much more than before because they drink wine because they love it. They also, a lot of our customers, they learn which glass to use for which kind of wine, which makes a very big difference. We see in our stores young people gather together drinking a bottle of wine or sparkling wine, or a romantic couple is sharing a glass of red wine together. So this is more and more seen, and I see a huge potential also for the future.
When you go home and tell your friends and your family about your business in China, what is their reaction? What is the biggest surprise for them?
Yeah, well, China is in everyone's mouth. China is growing a lot. China is very dynamic. So my friends in Switzerland, they first of all have a complete different understanding about China.
What do they think of China?
They think it's much less developed than it is. So China is developing so fast. I mean, Beijing is a more modern city than I guess many cities in Europe already. So it's changing so fast, and it's adapting and letting new lifestyles introduce much faster than in any other country. And Switzerland being a very stable, quiet, nice country, there are not many changes, you know. It's all, everything is very stagnated and very going always the same. So in China, it's changing a lot.
What do you think can be done to improve the business relationship between China and Switzerland, and in general between China and other European countries, in your perspective?
I think the Belt and Road Initiative is a very good start. China connects really the world together. It's an absolutely amazing opportunity. There is very good connections between China and Switzerland. We are doing already a lot of trade and a lot of exchanges. We have many Chinese investors also coming to Switzerland and vice versa. So it's only the start.
When your business is successful, have there been people trying to copy you and take the wind out of your sail?
Of course.
How do you deal with that?
When you have a certain success, you get copied. If you don't get copied, you are not successful. I learned in China. Okay. So we have many copycats all around it. It took me a while to get used to it, being a Swiss. But my employees told me it's a huge compliment. So this is something we are not afraid of. Actually, it's something good, because as more wine is accessible, people also learn a little bit more, and people then realize that, for example, other stores don't have this awesome price value than we offer it. So it is actually an opportunity. Every copycat is helping to introduce wine to the younger generation.
Okay, I wish you all the success
Thank you very much.
to building 888 stores in the next couple of years, and hope that you will be able to use the opportunity created by the Belt and Road to achieve that dream.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
People are interested in foreign cultures, and I wish to deliver this in an acceptable form.
Lajos Palasti is from Hungary. From being a big fan of the Chinese culture to the founder of a consulting company on the Belt and Road, he has a lot to tell. Why does Lajos choose the Belt and Road? And what challenges has he met when trying to bridge the cultures of the two countries? Join me next time on The Point in our special series, The Belt and Road's Heartbeats. And that's all for this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point with LX. Download the CGTN Live application to watch our show on your mobile devices. For previous shows, go to the CGTN channel of YouTube, click on the playlist and look for The Point with Liu Xin. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time on CGTN.